Hi, everyone. Um, Welcome to this webinar. Let's wait for a couple of minutes for everyone else to join as well, and then we'll start. I'd like to get to know you through the commenting section and welcome you to this webinar. Okay, so without further ado, let's start this. Thank you to everyone for joining this webinar. My name is Fatan Sopa, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Monafera, a social marketing agency specialized in higher education. The goal of this webinar is to understand ROI in higher education marketing and how to track and report it. This session will focus on essential insights without adding more unnecessary complexity into an already complex topic. As an outline of what we are going to be discussing today, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of ROI in higher education marketing and the challenges that higher ed marketers face in daily basis regarding tracking and reporting ROI. We're going to talk about how does an ROI ecosystem looks like in higher ed, the attribution models, tracking and reporting events in higher education marketing. I'm going to share some case studies with you from our client base. And by the end of this webinar, we're going to talk about some recommendations and key takeaways that you're going to walk from this webinar. We also are going to share an ROI calculator template by the end of this webinar, the ones that I have promised you through all the communication channels so far. I encourage you to ask questions during all the time via the chat box. And there will be a dedicated Q&A session by the end of the webinar, but I will try to answer all the questions as we move forward. This is a snapshot preview of how the ROI template looks like. And I'm going to get access to this by the end of this webinar. Before we start, I would like to get to know more you. And how confident are you in measuring marketing ROI at your institution? You're going to see a poll showing up in Zoom, and your answer is going to help me to adjust my content as we go and give you more value out of this webinar. Thank you. So the majority of the answers that we got so far are not very confident, and I hope this webinar will be helpful to you. There has been some research done by different organizations about the using of ROI in higher education marketing and tracking and reporting. Quite recent research by RNL has found out that nearly half of the higher education marketeers do not know what happens after a lead is generated. So imagine this, like they spend thousands of dollars and sometimes even millions of dollars on marketing. But once a prospective student fills out an RFI, they lose track of what happened with that lead after that step. So they don't know whether that become an application, admitted or enrolled. So this gap makes it impossible to calculate ROI accurately or even optimize marketing campaigns. So if you don't know which channels or campaigns bring in actual enrollments, chances are you're going to waste money on strategies that might not be working. On the flip side of that, you have another research by UPCEA and Search Influence that found out that 92% of those who are satisfied with their ability to track are also satisfied with the performance of their marketing campaigns. So marketeers who have strong tracking in place feel more confident in their campaign performance. And that is because data eliminate guesswork. They know exactly what's working and what's need to change. When you track ROI effectively, you can optimize your budget by cutting expenses on the ones that are not working, investing more on the ones that are. That also means that tracking ROI does not just improve reporting. It directly improves the marketing outcomes of your marketing activities. This also means that institutions that invest in better tracking tools and data integration see better results and stronger enrollments. ROI in higher education is much more complex than in other industries. Unlike other businesses who sell products, universities are, let's say, selling education and experiences. So the return on higher education marketing investment might be different for different universities. Some universities might count the lifetime value of the student, and some others might have higher objectives regarding the achieving institution's goals. However, in most of the cases that we have seen, most higher education marketers are focused on enrollment-related ROI. Essentially, how much it costs to recruit a student versus the tuition or funding that the student brings in. So basically, it's you got the revenue that you generate from students, you minus the marketing investment, you divide that by the marketing investment, and that's how you get the return on investment. And ROI in higher education marketing, it is very important. One of the reasons for that is that when you measure ROI, it provides accountability. As we know, institutions today are facing scrutiny in budgets, and the board wants to actually know where every marketing dollar is going and how is that contributing toward achieving institutions' goals. And when you have a clear ROI, you can demonstrate the marketing is not just a cost center, but it is an investment that yields results for the years to come. Second, when you track ROI, it enables better decision making. So when you understand which marketing strategies yield the best results, you can basically allocate more resources more effectively, and you can double down on high performing channels and adjust or cut back on underperforming ones. Then, when you measure ROI, you encourage a data-driven culture in your organization. So instead of making decisions based on tradition, like we have always done it like this, and this is how we're going to do it this time as well. Instead of doing that or biasing the result, you're going to use data to prove that your marketing strategy is working or not. And last but not least, when you measure ROI, it helps you to foster alignment with institutions' goals. Higher education marketing is not only about the quantity of students, but also about the quality of students as well. For example, an institution might have a goal to increase enrollment in graduate programs or increase the diversity of geographic enrollments, or it might have even higher goals than that. So when you are, by linking ROI with strategic goals, marketeers can show that their investment is not only a cost, but it is also an investment that generates results for the year to come. What is important for higher education, this part is that when you are able to link your investment with return on investment, you will make sure that you will not only generate enrollments, but the enrollments that you have generated are the right enrollments based on the goals of your institution. So understanding ROI is crucial for continuous improvement at your institution. It is one thing to execute a marketing campaign, and it's another to learn from it. So, and we need to understand that ROI as a metric is an aggregator metric that summarizes the success. However, in order to make use of it, you need to dig into its components, like the cost per lead, the conversion rates, and all other metrics that are going to help you to basically tweak the tactics and do better at your marketing activities. Now, from our experience with colleges and universities, we've seen a number of challenges that higher ed marketers face when tracking and reporting ROI. The first one on that is long decision cycles. As you know, choosing a college or university is often a very long process. So for a student, the journey can take months and sometimes even years from the first time a student has heard about an institution until the time that they enroll. So a prospective student might first encounter a university, let's say from a friend in a high school, or they've seen an ad somewhere, and chances are they're not going to have an idea about where they have seen that ad after some period of time, and only decide to enroll 1 year after that. And the long timeline actually here means that the longer is the decision cycle, the harder it's going to be to measure the return on investment. Another reason is multiple touch points. Prospective students typically go through multiple touch points before they take a decision. So they might click an ad, they can browse the website, they can go to Instagram or talk to a admission counselor. So they have seen you on multiple places. And because of this, you're going to need to attribute the success of your marketing campaign to a specific source. So you're going to need to apply credit to a specific source of that lead application or student, or to a number of sources. And that is going to be one of the questions that we're going to try to answer during this webinar. Another challenge that we've seen happening in higher ed space when it comes to measuring ROI is the lack of skills and resource gaps. So measuring ROI requires analytical skills and tools and a kind of skill set that not every higher ed marketer has fully developed yet. Some might lack resources, and some might even have to hire external agencies to help them with tracking and analytics. Historically, most universities haven't seen marketing with a corporate marketing mindset, but this has changed dramatically in the recent years. However, chances are that you're still going to get some pushbacks from other departments when you try to get more budgets for the tools and implementation support and other agency fees that comes when you want to properly measure your return on investment in higher ed. Another challenge is the attribution. As said, higher ed marketing is not, higher ed marketing does not happens only on the digital space. There are a number of traditional channels that play a crucial role on the decision-making process. So you have brochures, you have college fairs, you have high school visits, you have word of mouth, and each one of these touch points and others have an influence in helping a student take a decision. And the more touch points that you have, the more complicated is going to be to attribute your conversion to a specific source. So if a student, for example, sees a billboard or hears about your college from a friend, those are kind of influences that you might never be able to track and add them in your CRM. So this means that from the get-go, we need to understand and agree that there are going to be some marketing efforts that is where it's going to be very hard to quantify the ROI from that specific channel. And when you do this, the impact can and will be for sure underrepresented in your marketing reports. Another challenge is the data silos, and I've seen, this is one of the biggest problems that I've seen in the higher ed marketing when it comes to measuring ROI, and it usually happens between systems and people, usually in the marketing and admission departments. And This is the classical data silos where you have the marketing measuring traffic, rankings, and leads, and then you have the admission team who are tracking applications and enrollments on the other side. And then what happens is that there is either miscommunication, lack of communication, or lack of integrated systems that will help those two departments, but as well as other departments along the line to exchange information so that they can build a full enrollment funnels. So when you have data silos, this builds blind spots that you're gonna need to overcome only if you want to measure the ROI. Then last but not least, assigning a value in your higher education marketing efforts is going to be a challenge, even though the majority of colleges and universities do calculate ROI with enrollment-related and revenue-related metrics. Some universities might go beyond than that, and that might not be so straightforward. So you need to define what is a value that you want to measure against your ROI, and then develop your systems and your metrics around those values. Here is how that ROI ecosystem looks like in higher education marketing. So the decision making in higher education marketing is very complex for the students, and this happens along the line, and it might take months and sometimes even years. On this case, are you seeing the? I'm getting reporting that the screen might be. Are you seeing the screen actually? Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Erjan. Thank you, Chris. And I was saying the decision-making process is very complex. And when you try to build an ecosystem, you're going to have to consider everything in between, like all the channels, tools, people, integrations, communications, stakeholders, and everything. And this goes and becomes more complex and complex. And why? Because at each of the decision-making stages, you have tools and marketing channels like Google, Facebook, Instagram, and partnership sites that send traffic on your website. Then what you do actually is that you send this data, the traffic, to your analytics platform, which might be Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics. And things are much simpler during the awareness stage. However, as we move down the line, the enrollment funnel, it starts to become more complicated, especially when we go to the inquiry and application stage. Why? Because this is where the CRM comes into play. And when you get that traffic and that traffic fills out a request more information form, an RFI, the data that are submitted there has to go into your CRM. And sometimes this is where things get broken. And actually, the same happens during the application stage as well. However, if the inquiry and the application stages are not communicating with each other using the CRM, chances are you're going to have a broken funnel at the end of the day. And once the students actually fills out an application form, they go to the admission stage. Here is where your CRM or student information systems play a crucial role on how you track and report your ROI. And this is where most of the issues happen with tracking. Why? Because the CRM and student information systems usually operate in silos and do not send the data back to Google Analytics. So what we always recommend is to do what we call closing the loop. So what happened was that you are tracking the leads and application on Google Analytics, and then that information goes to CRM. Then when your admission team goes there and makes changes, those changes in most of the cases that we have seen do not go back to Google Analytics and close the funnel. So what we always recommend is to, whenever you have a status change on admission or enrollment, you need to implement a system that actually sends the data back to Google Analytics and creates an event for each admission enrollment that you generate, so that you have a full funnel in Google Analytics. Then you have different metrics during each stages. You have metrics like share of voice, branded traffic, non-branded traffic. You have social media metrics. You have other metrics that you need to measure during the awareness stage, and other stages as well. Like you have number of inquiries, cost per inquiry, email metrics. So there are different metrics for different stages of the funnel, and implementing a tracking system for each of these metrics is challenging, but it's doable. However, you need to choose your metrics very carefully and pay more attention, resources, and energy on the ones that are more important to you and your stakeholders. And only to add more complexity in this ecosystem, you have different stakeholders. So those different stakeholders might have different agendas, priorities, and strategies, and they might be interested on different metrics. Yeah, so the way that you communicate and report to these stakeholders might be different. So building this kind of ecosystem takes time. It's not something that you usually build in a month. And even when you build it, it is very recommended to cross-check and validate the data that are being passed on to your systems on an ongoing basis to make sure that you have data that you can trust. Because the last thing that you want to do is actually report data that you don't feel very confident onto precedent and board, and then not being able to prove what this data mean to you, and are they reliable or not. I mentioned the reporting of different stakeholders. So there is not a case where you actually have one report that fits all. It is very important to actually have your take on this, which metric is most challenging for you to track on. So far, the responses that I got is cost per enrollment and attribution. Attribution is actually, it's got in the first place. And I like the responses in a way, because those two are really the most challenging one, especially the attribution one. So we're going to cover that in a second. And thank you everyone for participating on this pool. It's really helpful to know your perspective on this, so I can adapt my talking as we go on this webinar. So when the way that you report to these stakeholders might be different. For example, if you report to marketing and admission, chances are that you're going to focus more on performance data. And that report might be on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and might have more a diagnostic tone. When you report to agencies and partners, you want to focus on granular data that focus on campaign performance and accountability, because you basically want to increase the accountability of the agencies that you are working with. Those reports usually happen monthly or quarterly and have a more analytical tone. When you report like to board of trustees, chances are that you're going to have to focus more on the strategic side of things and justify the marketing spend. Here's where you need to justify that your marketing activities are contributing towards achieving the goals that the board has approved. Those reports are usually done every quarter or annually, and usually are not longer than one single slide. Whatever is more than one single slide, chances are that things you report might not be read in full, or might add complexity in something that already might feel complex. Then you have the executive leadership. This is where you focus on high-level ROI and trends. These reports usually happen in one-slide reports, and this is the place where you want to be more strategic in your tone. Then you have the faculty and departments. This is the case usually with big universities that have a different marketing team and faculty team for each specific program. In this case, you need to your reports need to focus more on enrollments and all activities regarding to that specific program. It can be a one-page report, and here's where you may need to have more of educational tone. And the more complex your reports are to an audience that does not want that complexity, the less chances you have to send your message. And by the end, whenever you want to get a new budget approved for a new tool or new marketing activity, it might be more challenging for you to get that approval that you initially wanted. So here is the attribution part that most of you have answered as the most challenging one. So as we discussed, it is prospective students interact with multiple marketing touch points in their journey to enrollment. And attribution models are that kind of rules of frameworks that we use to decide how much credit each touch point deserves in a conversion. For example, in an application, enrollment, or lead. So understanding those models, it is crucial because the model that you choose can greatly influence which channels or campaigns appear most effective, and therefore how you allocate your marketing budget. As the first attribution, we have the first touch attribution. This is where you credit the first touch point that brought out the conversion for 100% of credits. So you assign 100% of credits to the first channel that generated a particular conversion. When you do this, you might overlook all other channels that came after that specific visit. For example, if a student has found you through organic search, and then they visit your website, and then they close the window. Then after 2 weeks, they see an ad of you on Instagram. They click on that, they read your program page, they close it. Then they participate in an online fair. Then they go directly on your website and request more information. In this case, when you attribute 100% to your organic search channel, you will overlook the influence of the other channels that came after that. So you have the opposite as well. You have the last touch attribution, and here is where you attribute 100% of the credits onto the final touch. This attribution highlights the touch points closest onto the conversion, but in this case, you are undervaluing the contribution of older channels. Then we do have a more linear approach where you basically are distributing the credits evenly throughout all the touch points the student has reached out before they converted to lead or application. Then you have the time delay attribution. This gives more credit to the touch points that are closer to a decision making. So the closer touch point is to a decision, the more credits that touch point is getting. There are other attribution models as well. So we have the U-shape attribution, where you actually give more credit onto the first touch and the last touch, and less to the middle. Then you have the W-shape attribution model, where you actually are giving most of the credits to the first, the middle, and the last touch point. So on these cases, you might need to choose how you want to attribute the ROI. And the way that you choose the attribution model is by answering some questions. So if your question is more like what channels are best at first point of contact for new prospects, then my recommendation is to use the first touch. If your question is more what's closing the students, then my recommendation is to go with the last touch. If your question is what is the overall contribution across the journey, then you might need to go with a linear or more multi-touch approach. You can also choose to go with time delay. What I've seen happening is that some universities that really own the enrollment funnel and really know the decision-making process that their students go, they are able to go beyond this attribution model. So they choose one attribution for leads, then they choose another attribution for applications, then they use another attribution for enrollments. And then they use marketing data to understand all the touch points that has helped to reach to a specific decision. And basically, the choice of model can significantly change how you evaluate a channel's ROI. But historically, many higher education institutions default to last touch or whatever that source field in their CRM is telling them. The first step towards measuring the ROI is actually building an ROI system based on metrics that measure. Here are some events that we recommend you to track regarding measuring the marketing ROI. First is lead form view. And this is where you track when a lead form has been shown to a prospective student. Then you have the event view. This is where you show an event to a prospective student. And the reason that you want to actually track the views and then the other events is first to understand the journey, then to discover any potential bottleneck along the way. So if you have any issues in the RFI forms or application forms or events, or you might need to change the copy of your program page, of your event page, when you track these events, you can build those funnel in Google Analytics 4 that can inform the decisions about what to change and where to change. Then during the inquiry stage, you have the lead form start. This is when you track when the prospect starts to fill out the form. And then you have the generate lead, and this is the default lead name for leads in GA4. This is where you track when a prospect fills out the form. And basically, when you have three events on leads, like you have the lead form view, lead form start, and generate lead, you can build a funnel in GA4 that tells you what is the conversion rate for leads from awareness to inquiry. And then you can use this data to make improvements on your conversion funnel. Then we do have the application stage. This is where you track application CTA clicks, so the clicks that you get on the application buttons. The reason you do that basically is to see which buttons are contributing to the application that you are getting. Then you have the application view. This is when you track prospect when the application form is shown to them. Then you have the application start, and then you have the application submit. Then in the admission part, so what happened is that the marketing department usually have full control until a lead is submitted or until an application is submitted into the CRM. Once that happens, this is where most of the data silos happen. So you still need to send events from your CRM back to your analytics platform so you can close the loop that I mentioned before. So here's where you need to send the admission complete, or events related with deposits. And last but not least, you have the enrollment complete event. This is where when a student enrolls at your institution, this is where you send the data back to your analytics platform. And on these cases, you might use, depending on the CRM that you're using, basically, you can either develop that feature inside your CRM, if your CRM allows it, or you can use connectors like Zapier to send this data back to your analytics. Now, tracking ROI across the enrollment funnel requires a combination of tools. There is any single system that can do all for you. Like, that system doesn't exist, and I don't see how it can exist in the future. You basically need to use a different set of tools for tracking. Then you have the CRM, and then you have the reporting tools. In the tracking tools, you have Google Analytics you have Google Tag Manager, you have Adobe Analytics, Matamo, Hotjar, What Converts, and Microsoft Clarity. The ones on green are the ones that we recommend using, because most of them, apart from What Converts, are free, and you can do pretty much everything that you need to do to measure your ROI regarding the tracking part using these tools. And What Converts is another tool that we often recommend to use. Basically, they are much better than GA4 into the registering the journey of user before and when they enroll, and tracking the real source of that user. Then you have the CRMs. I'm sure you know them, like Salesforce, Slate, Element 451, and others. And whichever CRM that you're using, you need to make sure that they support this kind of functionality, that you can send custom source to this CRM, and then you can send back this data to Google Analytics. And then you have the reporting tools. You have Microsoft Power BI, you have Tableau, you have Looker Studio, Google Sheets, and Google BigQuery. And again, the ones on green are the ones that we recommend. So we, especially when you use GA4, you can only save your data for 14 months. So because you're gonna need to make year-over-year comparison, you're gonna need to save this data somewhere. So we recommend you going to Google BigQuery. That's because you can basically integrate BigQuery, Looker Studio, and Google Sheets, right, because they are part of the same ecosystem, and generate really great reports if you have the data to generate those great reports. During our experience with higher ed marketers, we've seen common mistakes happening. And for sure, mistakes are going to happen when you are dealing with such a complex ecosystem. But being aware of these pitfalls can help you avoid them and ensure that your ROI analysis is accurate, it's reliable, and is actionable. So here are some mistakes that I've seen happening. The first one, obviously, is not measuring ROI at all. This might sound obvious, but there is a surprising number of marketing teams who either don't measure ROI or lack the necessary tracking. And this has been shown by recent reports by RNL and others, that almost half of higher ed marketers out there cannot tell what happened with their lead after that lead was converted to a lead on the website. So they might focus on vanity metrics. So even when some marketers do, like that's 60%, some of them are still focused on vanity metrics. So when you measure website visits, social media likes, or traffic, they might be necessary to optimize your campaigns, but you cannot tie those metrics to enrollment or revenue. And like, you cannot improve your marketing efforts if you don't measure it properly. So my recommendation here is to start by implementing the tracking basics. Even if your systems are not perfect, because at the beginning they will not be, you need to start somewhere. And the first thing that you can do actually is to make sure that your lead generation forms are being tracked properly, along with the source on those forms. Then we have the vanity metrics. This is basically where marketers focus on metrics that might look impressive, but you cannot connect them to actual enrollments. And just like website visits or likes, followers or impressions, and they can be good indicators of reach of a specific campaign, but you cannot connect the dots between them and the actual enrollment. And my recommendation is to prioritize metrics that drive actions. This can cause confusion and boredom, especially when you report this data to stakeholders. So make sure that you are reporting only relevant KPIs. Then you have not tailoring the message to the specific audience that you are reporting. This is the case when you give too much detail or the wrong kind of details to the wrong audience. For instance, like a common mistake I've seen happening is that when you give highly technical report to a non-technical audience like presidents or the board, or focusing on granular data, when executives, like, all they want to see is like just the big picture. Tell me, what is the big picture here? And the more vanity metrics and the more you don't align your metrics to the audience, the more confused they're going to be. Then there is this overlook of external factors and context. Marketing ROI can be influenced by many factors that are beyond the control of higher ed marketers. Like, there can be economic shifts, market shifts, or demographic shifts. And a mistake I've seen happening a lot in higher ed is to treat ROI purely due to marketing efforts without acknowledging the context beyond it. For example, if enrollments dropped, marketing ROI might look worse, but perhaps there was a nationwide enrollment dip that year. Or you might take some credits that you increase your enrollment. However, that increase on enrollment might have come from a competitor like closing the college. So you need to really have context beyond the numbers that you report. Then you have the neglecting or assuming that every single data that there is out there on analytics or your CRM is valid and correct. Mistakes can happen and will happen. So chances are you're going to have missing sources or the wrong sources, attribution sources on your CRM. You're going to have double counting, wrong formulas, etc., etc. So presenting incorrect ROI data can damage your credibility. A common scenario I've seen here is like your marketing team might report that X number of leads, your admission reports and Y number of leads. On these cases, the marketing, the board and the leadership sees a mismatch, and in these cases, you lose confidence in the data. And last but not least, is having reports with no actions or insights. Like, sometimes a team will put a lot of efforts into measuring and reporting ROI, but then nothing changes. And like that is a missed opportunity and can lead to question like, so what do we do with this information? So sometimes when you include reports, you don't have recommendations below those data. Sometimes it's the same just us not reporting those data at all. So my recommendation is to include actionable recommendations or next step based on the data that you show. Here are two case studies that illustrate how we have tackled this problem with some of our clients. The first one is a small college in Texas. They came to us with a problem that they were asking for more budget and they didn't get the budget approved, and because they couldn't tell how their marketing activities have been contributing to the enrollment that they actually got. And they were investing 10 times more budget on Google Ads, on paid search, than organic search. And the paid search was generating 40 times more leads than organic. So they were investing hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. What we found out is that there were no attribution information being passed on to the CRM, either from leads or applications. So they were living in a kind of illusion that I've seen many marketing teams live, is like when you invest so much in Google Ads and you receive a huge number of leads, and then your admission team is super busy like processing these leads, and then you get some enrollments, even though you have no idea where exactly those enrollments came from, you kind of assume that, okay, my marketing activities are working, and the investment that I'm making on this case on paid search is working because look at how many leads we're getting, and the admission team is busy like on processing those leads. That's an assumption, and we have seen this happening with a lot of colleges and universities. What we did basically is that we had to rebuild their RFI forms completely. We implemented the tracking, the getting the information from UTM URLs. One really important change that we did here, and I've seen this happening a lot, is that it is very easy to track the source when you have the UTM in the URL. However, there are quite a large number of visits that do not have this UTM in the URL. For example, when you receive traffic from organic search, links in organic search in Google do not have UTMs in that. So if you are only basing your attribution on UTMs, you're going to end up with a huge number of leads and applications in your CRM with no attribution information at all. So in these cases, you will either need to build a custom solution, use a third-party tool, or see if your CRM supports detecting the real source of the student when UTMs are not present. So we had to set up the system and let it stay there for 6 months, for one semester, until we got enough data to tell what's working and what's not. And what we discovered was shocking. Even though they were receiving 40 times more leads through paid search than organic search, the return on investment from paid search was only 1.5 to 1. So for every dollar they spent, they got only $1.5, which is crazy, basically. And versus organic search, when they actually got 90 to 1 ROI. So for every dollar they spent, they got $90 back. And on this case, the winner was clear. I mean, we usually work with a margin of error here for like 5%. And even if the margin of error here is much bigger than that, there is still a huge discrepancy between the ROI on paid search and organic search. The next case study is a mid-size nursing school in Ohio. They came to us basically with a data silos problem. The marketing team was reporting a different number, and their admission team was reporting a different number. So what was happening is that there were lack of integration between systems that marketing were using and admission were using, and there were a lack of communication and standardization between those two departments. So what we did actually there is that we did an audit and to find out what's going on, and we had to work with both of this team to redefine the funnel based on the customer behavior, and then we had to work with them with fixing the integration that passes the information from website, from lead into the CRM, but as well from application into the CRM. We standardize the sources. What we have seen happening a lot with universities and colleges is that, like, when they set up the CRM, they define a set of sources of leads and applications. Like that list of sources might look good in the beginning. What happens is that along the lines, things get broken, and like they end up with 50 sources of students. So we standardize that list of sources, and we built a unified dashboard that helped us understand what was the enrollment funnel for this university. And we were able to build a report with high confidence that was showing where the data, where the enrollment was coming from. So they could tell the number of leads and applications, even though they were different. Now we could build the enrollment funnel below the applications, and the reason for that is that we had the data. We set up the whole system to actually have those data in the CRM. Here is a 5-step ROI framework that we use to implement ROI projects in our agency. The first thing that we do actually is the define, and you can take this report, this framework, and apply it to your organization. The first step that we do here that you can do as well is define. This is where you define what your marketing objectives are, what your current infrastructure is, and what metrics you want to measure. Then you move on to setup. This is where you set up data collections and tracking and integrate those systems together. Sorry. Then you have the analyze. This is where you monitor and interpret the data and deliver actionable insights. All of this process happens in the cycle, and it is a continuous process that you basically need to do if you want to have a robust system in place that you can trust. Then the next step is report. This is where you communicate the findings and strategies to your team and your stakeholders. And then based on the reports, you take actions and you optimize and you refine your marketing efforts. As a conclusion, before we move on to the ROI template, from the information so far from the webinar, we can conclude that measuring ROI is crucial, yet is often overlooked. So near half of higher education marketers are not tracking the marketing efforts properly. So if you're not tracking ROI, chances are you are making decisions in the dark. Another one is the attribution model. This is where you need to pay close attention to how students, how you are contributing the credits to each of the touch points that are contributing towards achieving your conversions. Then you have the data silos. So the data silos and poor tracking undermine ROI measurement. So a student's journey needs to be tracked from the first click to enrollment. And the more disconnected your data and the people are, the harder it is to show the ROI. Then we have the key ROI. You need to make sure that key ROI metrics always align with your enrollment goals. So it is very important to make sure that the metrics that you are tracking are helping you to understand where you are at achieving your your institution's goals. Another takeaway is that measuring ROI is the key to marketing success. Like without ROI tracking, how do you know that? How do you know what's working and what's not? And marketing is not because marketing basically is not just about it's not just about proving marketing's value. It's about making smart decisions that help you achieve the goals that you're set to achieve. Then, last but not least, you have you understood that investing in the right tools and resources drives growth. We have launched a poll basically that as you there is a pool that helps us to understand how this webinar was for you. We are not done yet, basically. So the poll is going to be shown there for a couple of minutes until we end the webinar. So here is that ROI template that I mentioned. So I'm going to share this template with you by the end of the webinar once the recording is ready. Basically, we use this template on some cases when there is still work to be done in the way that the systems are connected with each other, and when you need to actually get the data, standardize them, and then report. Here is where you add your lead, application, and enrollment information, and then the system goes there and cleans this data. Then you have the mapping. So we have created a list of standardized sources, channels that you need to map. So you basically get your original source and you map them to a standardized source. Then you do the same for stages, because your CRM might have different stages than standard inquire, applied, admitted, and enrolled. Then you have the cost. This is basically where you add your marketing cost for every single month, along with marketing overhead, and then you add your tuition fees. So once you add this data, the system will be able to show you an executive report that tells you like what is the cost per enrollment, what is the cost per application, cost per inquiry, what are the top spending channels, what are the top channels by marketing ROI, or which channels had drawn most of the applications. Then you have ROI by channel. You have metrics like cost per inquiry, cost per application, cost per enrollment, conversion rates for each of the acquisition channels. Then you have ROI by program. This is where you see what is the ROI for specific programs, along with conversion rates. Then you have a full dashboard with ROI by term, enrollment by term, and then enrollment by country, along with a full dashboards with other charts that are really helpful to you to understand how your marketing efforts are doing. And then finally, you have a sample data that tells you how the system works. I'm going to go basically to the question that you might have asked in the chat to answer if you have. Okay. So I do not see any question in the chat. I will share this webinar along with a template as soon as we have the recording ready. And you can reach out to me through LinkedIn and email if you have any question regarding the calculator template, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you for participating in this webinar, and I hope I'll see you soon.